You're looking at an episode called Street Talk, and we want you to hear what we talk about on the streets. We will be talking about pro-life, anti-life, and what is going on in the community. And we want your feedback. Thank you.
If you don't believe in conspiracy, then you shouldn't be looking at the Underground Railroad. The New World Order. Auction and Negro sales. $100. 40 years of Negro Tuskegee syphilis experiment. Moon posting a flag and playing golf. There are three truths: the dreadful bitter truth, your truth, and the Clifton Broadley Underground Railroad's truth. We as the media, mission, and duty is to make you aware of what's happening in our city, community.
All aboard, come on up Clifton, and beat the drums.
Well, assalamu alaikum to everybody. This is Clifton Raheem Bradley in the Underground Railroad television show. I'm here with somebody that loves to read, and I'm going to interview him today, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Peace.
All right, brother, thank you. And brother, please tell us your name.
My name is Shango Hiru Amin Patah.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, Shango is the name of the Yoruba deity of thunder. Hiru is the name of the Kemetic god who was the son of Osiris. And Amin Patah is a name that was kind of like given to me, but spiritually it means the hidden force of the creator, the opener of the way.
And you're reading the Massive Magnificent, you know the meaning of your name, a lot of people don't know. And that's a magnificent book that you're reading. What you're reading, man, they say the real goal is at the library. I'm going to zoom in on that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this book is called Black People Invented Everything. And it is written by a man named Dr. Sujan Kumar Das. Pictures on the back.
Okay, I'm gonna zoom in. Audience. Okay.
He is the founder of the Solutionary Institute, and he is a member of the Nation of Gods and Earths. But he is also a committed activist. He is a Pan-Africanist. He's written a number of books like When the World Was Black. He wrote 2 volumes called When the World Was Black. He wrote another book called Science of Self. This is the most recent book he wrote. And I have to say, this brother, he is a brother. He was originally born in Bengal, India, but he is a black man. He is a man of African descent. There are about 80 million to 100 million black people who live in India today. I know a lot of black people in America may not be aware of that, but there are about 80 to 100 million black people who live in India today, and they are known as Dalits. And he is one of those people. So the book that he wrote here, really basically, the title says it all. He talks about how black people not only invented many things in America, he talks about the fact that black people invented civilization, education, science, technology, spiritual traditions, martial arts, the art of war. He goes in very deep. He talks about how black people developed civilization and how long black civilization has been on the earth. And he traces it all back to the motherland, Africa. He always points out that Africa is the motherland and that all the black peoples of the world are descendants of our ancestors who came from the African continent. So it's like, I'm giving a summary, but there is just so much in this book that this brother covers. In Chicago, Illinois, United States. So he is very well known, he's very well respected. There are a lot of black scholars like Maulimu Baruti, for example, and Malefi Asante, and the late Runako Rashidi, who all had a deep respect for Dr. Sujan Das. Those are just a few of the great black scholars that had very deep respect for this man here. So he's no fraud, he's no charade, he's the real thing.
Man, you a deep brother.
Thank you.
Brother. And brother, I want to ask you something. We're looking at an episode called Street Talk, and we want you to hear what we talk about on the streets. We will be talking about pro-life, anti-life, and what is going on in the community. And we want your feedback. Thank you. I want to ask you something, brother, and it's good, brother. I would like to ask you, brother, how do we stop the criminal activity in Chicago and the United States, because the economy is in shambles, the prices have went up? How do we minimize the criminal activity?
Okay, I'll address that in two parts, because I'm assuming when you say the criminal activity in Chicago, you were referring to the quote black on black violence that is going on in our community. I know this is probably not an answer that most people would expect, but I don't really think that we can stop it at this point. And the only reason why I say that we can't...
I said minimize.
Okay, well, we can't. I don't think we can stop it, only because the cycle was created in this community from the outside, and it was based on the dysfunction that has been created within the black community. But do I think it can be minimalized? I do think so. It sounds very simple, but I think knowledge of self, a stronger sense of unity, black unity. I'm not afraid to say black unity. And just the understanding that we are a community. When you break down the word community, commune, unity. You know, I'm not one of these people who think that, oh, black people have always messed up or have always done stuff wrong. Because I remember growing up at a time when the black community was a lot more together in Chicago than it is now. We had a stronger sense of family, stronger sense of community, stronger sense of togetherness, and a lot of that was the outgrowth of the Black Power movement in the 1960s. Yes, my father and my mother were very much a part of that era, and they passed down those values to me. I was fortunate to grow up around a lot of people who were conscious black people, true conscious black people, and really had those African-centered values that the Black Power movement passed down to us. And I feel like that is the only way we'll be able to minimalize it. These young brothers and sisters out here, we have to teach them the same things that a lot of us learn. Those of us who know, those of us who've been taught, we have to teach those things to the youth today. Because back in the day, we had a lot of different groups. We had organizations who were trying to teach that and who were successful. Like, I have to give credit to the Nation of Islam, to people like Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, because they really did a lot to galvanize the black community, to encourage pride in self. That is another thing that we need. We have to have pride in ourselves again, because I see a generation that's come up behind the generation that I came up in. I came up in the so-called hip-hop generation, but we still had a lot of consciousness then. And I see a lot of people today, they really believe that their identity as black people is connected to being a thug, or being connected to being a gangster, or being connected to something that's considered to be negative. And there was a time when black people didn't see themselves that way. They saw themselves as kings and queens, as revolutionaries, as thinkers, as mothers and fathers of civilization, because that is what groups like the Nation of Islam taught. That is what groups like the Black Panther Party was reiterating. That is what groups like the Nation of Gods and Earths taught. That is groups even like the Sunni Muslim community that Malcolm was a part of was teaching to black people. I include them all. They all played an important role. Malana Karinga, Malefi Asante, they all played a role. Dr. Bobby Wright, they all played a role. So we have to pass all these teachings down to the young people today. We have to show them how it is relevant. Like this writer here has made a lot of what I'm talking about relevant to the younger generation. He speaks to the generation coming up. And we need more scholars like that who can speak to the generation coming up, speaking in a way that they can understand, but still giving them the essence of what all this knowledge of self is really about.
You are looking at an episode called Street Talk, and we want you to hear what we talk about on the streets. We will be talking about pro-life, anti-life, and what is going on in the community. And we want your feedback. Thank you. Hey, you mentioned Dr. Karinga. Now there may be an individual that does not know who Dr. Karinga is. I know,
okay.
But inform us.
Well, Maulana Karinga was originally born Ron Everett. I don't quite remember what state he was born in, but I know
California.
I think it was California, right? And in the mid '60s, they had what white historians call the Watts riots, but those of us who are conscious, we call it the Watts Rebellion, because the black population rose up as a result of police brutality, rampant discrimination, and just being forced to live in conditions of poverty. You know, these were things that was going on even back in the 1960s. And so Maulana Karinga took note of all that, took note of what was going on, what had happened in the Watts Rebellion, and he decided to create an organization called the US Organization, meaning us versus them.
Sure. Go ahead, bro.
And he began to incorporate a series of African principles that he had adopted from the Swahili culture of East Africa, which he called Kawaida. And he instituted what he called the 7 principles of Kawaida, which were later incorporated into what he called Kwanzaa, a celebration that many black people in North America celebrate today. You know, he never intended to really build a mass movement the way Marcus Garvey did. He wanted to build a cadre that would spread this kind of African-centered knowledge to all the black communities in North America. And for the most part, even though he had a lot of government intimidation, infiltration, you know, they came at him the same way they came at the Black Panther Party. They tried to play the two organizations against one another, you know, create COINTELPRO, create violence. But despite all that, he still managed to accomplish, I believe, his goal of creating a cultural revolution among black people. He really was the main reason why a lot of black people in the 60s started wearing dashikis and taking African names and learning Swahili, learning Yoruba, listening to African music. He was promoting the idea that we are not disconnected from our African ancestors and our African brothers and sisters. Despite the 400 years that we went through of slavery and oppression, we still have a lot of those African values within us. And he wanted us to reiterate that because he knew that was a way that we could build up the black community and make it stronger. And Maulana Karinga, later on, he went through some trouble. He went to prison. But when he came out, he was actually stronger than ever. He was more focused, more clear on what his philosophy was. And he actually became a professor of African and African American studies at the University of California, and became a very close associate of another great professor, Dr. Molefi Asante, who created the philosophy of Afrocentricity. And those are two men I have a great deal of respect because their writings influenced a lot of my thinking as well.
Wow, man, you're a heavy brother.
Thank you.
You are looking at an episode called Street Talk, and we want you to hear what we talk about on the streets. We will be talking about pro-life, anti-life, and what is going on in the community. And we want your feedback. Thank you. Wow, man, you're a heavy brother.
Thank you.
I want to ask you something. I'm going to put this on television.
Okay.
This is all I do. Who knows what the next second holds? I might not make it back tomorrow.
Okay.
But you know what? I want to ask you something. There was a Supreme Court overturned Roe versus way. And that's, for people that don't know, that's giving women the opportunity to choose whether they want to abort their baby and they don't want to. Do you think that the Supreme Court made the right decision where each state will determine for themselves whether to abort? I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm going to give what they call the official narrative, and then I'm going to give my opinion on it.
Okay.
The official narrative is that, you know, this case legalized abortion because of the gangs of the feminist movement in the 1970s, which supposedly gave women the right to do what they want with their bodies, have freedom to do what they want with their bodies. And that court case said that abortion should be considered one of those rights. Now, that's what the mainstream society says. But when I'm looking at it from a black perspective, a Pan-African perspective, an African-centered perspective, I think that was a very damaging case for black people, because now it enabled a whole lot of people, both male and female, to say, well, if we just happen to have a child because of some intimate act that we got into, that now it's okay, we can just abort the child. We don't have to raise him. We don't have to give him to foster parents. We don't have to deal with them at all. I feel like allowing that frame of thinking as a result of this case to go into the black community, it amounted to a kind of, might sound extreme, but a kind of self-inflicted genocide. Because if we're aborting all these black children, and say that, but it's the facts. They even have like studies that show that abortions in the black community went up after that case occurred. I mean, like up into not just the thousands, I mean possibly several million. That's a lot of black babies getting aborted. And, you know, some people might say this is a conspiracy theory. Shango's talking off his head now. But I feel like that was intentional. I feel like that was designed to reduce the numbers of the black community, because we supposedly make up 12% of the population in the United States, although from what I understand, it may actually be 13 or 14% right now. But they say it's 12. I think it might be a little bit more of us. And then we gotta look at the fact that not only were they promoting abortion in the United States, and when black people come to the understanding that when we're talking about ourselves as a race, we're not just talking about so-called African Americans. We're talking about black people around the world. We are a majority population. We are not a minority. So when you look at the issue around abortion, you have to look at it that way. And when you look at it that way, you'll come to an understanding that, okay, wait a minute, maybe this whole abortion thing was done intentionally, because there are certain powerful people who think, and they feel threatened by that because that could cause problems for their social political power. So my opinion, to summarize it all, I'm finally summarizing, is that case was a disastrous case for us. It was disastrous to us because of the effect that it had on the numbers of our people.
Yeah. Oh, wow, man. That is heavy. You are looking at an episode called Street Talk, and we want you to hear what we talk about on the streets. We will be talking about pro-life, anti-life, and what is going on in the community. And we want your feedback. Thank you. Oh, wow, man. That is heavy. And you know what? We're going to wind up, and do you want to give any type of contact information? Have people get in contact with you? And you know what? His contact information will be in the description if he wants to give it to you.
Well, I do have an email called cdyo365gmail.com. And this is a spot that I'm can be found at a lot of times.
53rd and Blackstone.
Yeah.
5300 South Blackstone.
Yes.
Chicago, Illinois, the United States of America.
Yeah, some people call this corner the cosmic corner. Some people call it the conscious corner. But, you know, it's basically a place where a lot of conscious black people, we come together and we discuss things that is important to us. Yep.
And do you have any finishing comments, message that you would like to convey to the listening audience? Because it may have been something that I didn't give you the opportunity to say that you wanted to say is dear to your heart.
What's dear to my heart is that it's very important, I believe, particularly for black people in America, people of African descent, African Americans. It's important that we study our history diligently, that we understand the lessons of our history, both good and bad, that we understand our lineage, our connection to Africa, that we understand that everything that really made the world what it is, all the great spiritual traditions, including Islam, all come from the African soil, all come from the African mind, the African spirit, the African way of looking at things. And I think it's important that we hark back to that we get back into the idea of African identity. And the reason why I say that now is because you got some black people running around talking about we're Indians, or we're indigenous to America, or we're aboriginals, or we're this and we're that and we're that. And what a lot of them don't understand is that Africans were the ancestors of Native Americans. So instead of actually claiming who you are, you're claiming to be a people that descended from our ancestors, because all the populations of the world descended from Africans, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. So I think it is important that we push that African identity back into our community to discount misinformation. You know, we're in the age of information, and the dangerous thing about that is you have great information out here and great knowledge that'll help you to learn more about yourself. Then you have misinformation. And it's important that our people do not get misinformed about who they are and where they come from. Because like Marcus Garvey said, if we knew the greatness from which we came, we would have more respect for ourselves.
So will it be all right to put this on television?
Absolutely. No problem.
Okay. And you know what? I want to thank you for consenting to this interview. And let me see, should they watch the Underground Railroad that comes on every Saturday night at 10:30?
Yes.
In Chicago and YouTube.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And I want to thank you for listening to me. Darian, tell it, you sharp.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, my brother.
Okay.
You are looking at an episode called Street Talk, and we want you to hear what we talk about on the streets. We will be talking about pro-life, anti-life, and what is going on in the community. And we want your feedback. Thank you. Hey, how y'all doing? This is Clifton Raheem Bradley of the Underground Railroad television show, and we have a controversy issue that's going on. And the Supreme Court judges have overturned Roe versus Wade, and maybe she explained what Roe versus Wade is.
Me?
Yes.
Peace, y'all. Shout out to the Underground Railroad show and the Underground Railroad legacy. Roe v. Wade is the Supreme Court giving women the right to choose whether they will carry a life or abort that life. And I believe in a woman's right to choose for sure, 100%. I think that there are so many policies that can be in place if we really wanted to be in care for a child's protection. a lot of women get in really messed up predicaments, and the right for them to choose what happens with their reproductive rights is, I think, very paramount to just equity and justice.
You are looking at an episode called Street Talk, and we want you to hear what we talk about on the streets. We will be talking about pro-life, anti-life, and what is going on in the community. And we want your feedback. Thank you. But I would like to ask you a question. Now, you don't have to answer this. When a woman that is carrying a fetus, if something happens, that individual gets charged with killing two people because it's a fetus inside.
Right.
So, would you say that is murder to a certain extent?
I'm not saying that the right to choose is not controversy and is not painful and not considered murdering a life. So that's not what I'm saying. I think that when we think about the practice of justice, in some ways it can be very harmful, and it can also be very the decision is not so clear cut. What I'm saying is a woman should have the right to choose what happens in the case of whether she needs to choose to carry or needs to choose to not carry. That's what I'm saying. I think that, and that's not an easy decision. It's not an easy decision. And I don't advocate for the death of babies or fetus. I also see a lot of people who can't take care of their children in the real world. And you know what I'm saying? Like, what about, I think that the care for life
Okay.
here in this world needs to be reconsidered in more loving and careful ways. And I think that certain laws are here to really kind of like overpower certain people's livelihood. Yeah, so I think it's complicated, is what I'm saying. It's a very complicated issue, and but I am an advocate for a woman's right to choose.
Okay. Well, you know what?
100%.
You know what? Is there anything? Oh, okay. You know what? This will be on the Underground Railroad television show and YouTube show. I want to thank you for consenting to do the interview, and
Peace and blessings.
please, you might want to give your email information. What if you don't? But it will be on YouTube. Thank you, sir.
Peace and blessings.
That beautiful
Thank you.
smile.
Thank you.
Hey guys, if you want to see a great show, watch the Underground Railroad with Cliff Saturday night at 10:30.
All right, thank you, brother. This will be on the Underground Railroad television show and YouTube show. I want to thank you for consenting to do the interview, and
Peace and blessings.
please, you might want to give your email information. What if you don't? But it will be on YouTube. Thank you, sir.
Peace and blessings.
That beautiful
Thank you.
smile.
Thank you.